Heihachi Mishima will not hide.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I want to do sort of a review, sort of a reaction to watching the Tekken motion picture for my first time ever. I've always seen clips, the one where Heihachi bites the axe and breaks it with his teeth. I seen the clip of Kazuya about to throw Heihachi off the mountain, but I never really watched the whole thing for myself. And with Tekken Bloodline right around the corner, that show is very, very hyped. A lot of people are excited for it, myself included. I thought this would be a perfect time to watch it. Now, something that I would say starting off, I do like how it starts off. In the beginning, you have Jun as a child and you have Kazuya as a child. Now, Jun sees that a rabbit is injured. It got attacked by a bobcat, and she's sort of there mourning the animal. And then Kazuya comes up and he's just talking to her, right? Just talking to her about the animal. And then all of a sudden, Heihachi shows up. And I love Heihachi's presence in this. Heihachi gives off a very threatening, very demanding presence. He shows up and he's like,
"Why are you wasting your time here? You have better things to be doing. You are weak."
She needed my help. I'm not weak.
"My son will show no weakness. You must prove yourself." This is the moment where he lifts him up and he throws him off the cliff. He says, if you're strong, you will survive it. If not, you won't. And this kind of mirrors the same thing that he says to Jin in the Tekken Bloodline series. When Jin shows up, he's like, we're going to see if you're worthy to keep the Mishima name. You're my grandson, but I'm going to fight you. And if you die right now, and here you can kind of see he's still doing that same thing. Even though it backfired with his own son, he still was trying to push that same thing to Kazuya. And that kind of shows that he did not learn his lesson. That kind of shows the stubbornness of the character. And what I did kind of like is how Kazuya had a necklace with Kazumi on it. Now, they don't say Kazumi because at the time when this was created, she wasn't a fully fleshed out character, but the necklace is supposed to represent him and Kazumi. And it's kind of the same thing with Jin. Jin holds Jun in very high regards. That's why people want that character to return, because it's like at this point, it's the only thing that Jin really cares about besides, Asuka and Zhao Yu. Now, the story time skips. And it shows a big skeleton thing being lifted out of the water. Now, my first time watching this, I had no clue what this was. I was trying to figure out and think what is this? Is this Kuma? Is this some sort of devil creature? True ogre? There's a lot of things running through my mind, but I really couldn't piece it together. The story starts following Jun Kazama as an adult. She's working with this animal part of the government. She gets invited to the tournament. They send Lei with her as sort of a partner, right? Backup cop. At this point is when the story really starts kicking into gear. One of my favorite characters in this 40-minute movie has to be Lei. I was not expecting him to be in it, because all of the clips and things that I seen, none of them was focusing on him. So when he was there, I was very interested to see what he brings to the table. But I think his personality is really cool. He's scheming and he's plotting to try and take control. You can see from the very moment, he's trying to, prove himself to Heihachi, but also he really just wants control. He's trying to solidify his position in the family however he can, because he's adopted, so he doesn't really feel like the throne is his. And that's one of his main reasons for going after Kazuya. He feels like at any point in time, Heihachi may be like, okay, you're not really my real son, get out of here. My real son's coming. You know what I mean? So he feels like his time is running out.
That's enough. As long as my brother's alive, then I'm the adopted son with second-rate clout.
And as a result, he hires Nina. Now, Nina and Anna, we'll talk more about Anna in a second. I think their role in the story really is sad if you break it down. The Mishima Zaibatsu uses these two sisters for their own purpose. And these two sisters are so blinded by their own hatred for each other, they can't even see it. You have the first scene here where Lee is riding in a car with Nina. He's commenting on her looks. He's gassing her up, saying, you're the only person who could stop Kazuya, and all of this, right? He's really talking her up, and he's driving her to try and kill Kazuya. Now, what's funny about this, right after this scene, he goes back to the hotel and he's like sleeping with Anna. And you can kind of see there how they're pawns.
Once I'm the owner of the Mishima conglomerate, you'll never have to take needless chances on risky jobs like this again.
They don't see that they're being used by the Mishima Zaibatsu and the people who run it until it's too late. When Nina shows up to kill Kazuya, I really like this scene. One, because it kind of hints at the demon sort of controlling Kazuya. In this show, they really don't even explain what it is either. And it's kind of funny. Tekken 7, we still don't know that much about it. Hopefully Tekken 8 will get answers, but I kind of like it being ambiguous too.
You must live to witness the culmination of our fate.
All of these characters are sort of having nightmares. Whatever they experience throughout their life sort of plays with their mind, and Kazuya is really the only one who falls victim to that. He falls victim to the hatred, and Julia does as well, but she's not as strong. But you have Nina show up and she starts shooting a AK through the windows. She has night vision goggles or some sort of x-ray vision goggles, and she's looking through trying to shoot him. Then Nina goes in, and I kind of like this thing about Nina where she's a very good assassin, but when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, she cannot compete with Kazuya. Twice in this show, she tried to assassinate him. Twice, she got very, very close. But when it came time to fight, she got landslided very easily. One thing that this show did very well, they really showed why all of these characters are different. Like, it really comes true when Jack shows up. When Jack shows up and he has the little girl, this part of the story is another thing that I liked quite a bit.
Get back!
This girl and I need to get on the boat.
Now, what's really cool about Jack, he does not have a ticket. He does not have a pass. And as you can see, the guards won't let him pass. They're trying to stop him. Jack's purpose or reason for going to the island is because he's looking for a professor, Dr. Boskanovich. And then Lee, he sees Jack and he sees how tall he is, how big he is. And he tells him,
Bruce, fight this man, and if you win, you can participate in my father's contest.
And one thing that really shines through about the Tekken motion picture as well is the character introductions. Every character introduction feels special. From Bruce to Roger.
There's something here!
All of these characters, their introductions to the story feels big. It feels meaningful. One thing that I was thinking about when I first seen the fight between Bruce and Jack, my first reaction was Bruce is kind of a scrub. He throws a punch, hits Jack's metal exterior, he hurts his hand, Jack punches him back, and he loses. After thinking about it, I wonder what techniques would Bruce have done if he knew beforehand that Jack was a robot, because he sort of caught off guard by it. If you see his face, he wasn't expecting him to be a metal robot, and you have to imagine he would have fought differently if he had that knowledge. Someone can lose because they don't know something, or someone can lose just because they aren't powerful enough, and that kind of mirrors Tekken the gameplay. It's really cool that they incorporated details like that into this. In this instant, Bruce just he was not prepared for the matchup. Now, as the boat sets sail to the island, Kazuya is on a bridge and he jumps from the bridge onto the boat. And I love here how Lee, he secretly does not like this.
I'm sure our father will be delighted to hear that you will be entering the competition. Shit. Stationing Nina at the port was a wasted effort.
He did not want Kazuya to get on the boat because, like I said, he wants the power for himself. And now that Kazuya is on the boat, he knows he's not strong enough to get him off of it. No one on the boat is. 2, he doesn't want to be replaced. He knows if Kazuya goes to the tournament and kills Heihachi, he's going to take control of everything. And he may even kill him. And I like how Lei, he's thinking all this. But on the outside, he's putting on these smiles, these smirks. He's hiding his true emotions.
Well, I'm glad you finally decided to make it, my dear brother.
You learn a lot about these characters in a very brief period. And I also like how the King of Iron Fist tournament, Tekken, is an island. In sort of the later games and whatnot, they have locations all around the world, and I feel like that's cool and all. You get a bunch of different scenery, but when it's contained to an island, it's more, it makes sense why it's chaos. It makes sense why people are shooting and people are breaking the rules, and you don't know who wins and who loses. But when it's all around the world, loopholes is created, is my point. Now, once they're on the island, the big moment that takes place like a day before the actual tournament, Jun Kazama goes to Kazuya as he's training to try and return the necklace that he lost. And you can really see the difference between their personalities. From the time he got through off the mountain to this point, he's been on his own. He's been doing God knows what to survive. So all he really has is hatred.
And now, nearly 16 years later, I find out that you were still alive and you made it back up that cliff. But look at you! Your hatred for your father has been consuming you since that day.
And in that moment, I kind of thought back to like Star Wars, to Darth Vader, to the Sith. In the moments where these guys are at their lowest, or when, like Darth Maul, that was his story exactly. He got cut in half by Obi-Wan, and the only thing that kept him alive was his hatred. Floating in space, ended up on a trash planet. All he had was his hatred to fuel him.
You may have forgotten me, but I will never forget you. You cannot imagine the depths I would go to stay alive, fueled by my singular hatred for you.
Ever since that time, I knew that getting revenge was the strongest reason for living I would ever have.
Now, as they're talking, once again, Nina shows up and she tries to assassinate him, throw wire around the neck and try to slice his throat. And once again, this shows that she is a good assassin, but she's not really a skilled fighter. In this moment, she would have killed Kazuya if Jun had not intervened. Now, this is what I really mean when I say the sisters are being used by the Mishima Zaibatsu. Nina shows up with a rocket. I love how even back then, the rocket and red dress was her go-to items. But she shows up, she shoots a missile in the room, they all jump out the window and survive. She goes outside, she says a few words, and she runs off. And in this moment, she thinks she's a part of the Mishima Zaibatsu. She thinks she's in on the joke, but she doesn't realize that she's being used by them. They don't really care about her. Maybe Lee does, but Heihachi definitely doesn't. The next day, the tournament starts and you have all of the competitors down at the bottom. All of these guys has been hand selected for different reasons. What I really like about this, the tournament in terms of the story, the Tekken motion picture, the way they invited these people, it's almost as if they're trying to cover up their wrongdoings. Because the Mishima Zaibatsu is so evil, so corrupt, and you wonder how they're able to get away with it for so long. But here it says they do a tournament every year. And if you look at the people they invited a cop, they invited a government agent that's investigating them, Jun Kazama, basically a bunch of people who hate the Mishima Zaibatsu, and they're planning to kill them all. And I think that's how they've been surviving for so long. Anytime they do something wrong or they do something bad, they invite the survivors of that atrocity to the tournament and they eliminate them. And that's how they keep going. That's how they keep operating without being like discovered, without being shut down. Now during the tournament, I kind of like how Lee is sort of doing everything he can to get the results that he wants. And this kind of goes back to the idea of the tournament being rigged. Now everyone's fighting, everyone's dealing with their challenges. Lei, he goes looking, investigating the island, taking pictures of missiles and things like that. He's trying to get enough evidence to shut down the Mishima Zaibatsu. And Jack is following him. At the beginning of the story, Lei and Jun Kazama stood up for Jack. And then when the time comes, Jack repays the favor and stands up for them. And he goes along with him to sort of investigate, to sort of look at what the Mishima Zaibatsu is hiding. Now, the first thing they find is a bunch of prototype Jacks. I like that this is added to the story. Even though it's a small part, I think it's really cool to show how Jack is different from prototype Jack. And I wasn't too sure if it was all of the Jack robots. It was specifically said that Jack 2 was a lifeless robot. But in the situations where things can be deemed inhumane, like a humanity switch turns on and they become sentient.
When I found this girl, it began a new period in my existence. My decisions became my own.
Now, once they reach the laboratory, they run across these T-Rexes. When I was first watching this, I had no clue what these were. In my mind, I'm thinking Ogre, I'm thinking Alyssa, but this is actually a bunch of Alex dinosaurs. It isn't shown until later, but we kind of get a sneak peek of what they're doing when Roger shows up with the boxing gloves.
Don't let the cute fuzzy looks fool you. He packs a punch.
I love Roger here. Looks so cute, yet at the same time he wants to kill you. He wants to punch you to death. He's ready to fight. Even as they're talking, Dr. Boskanovich tells Roger Jr. to stand down. He's still in the background punching a punching bag. And you could kind of see how the Mishima Zaibatsu tweak these animals. They turn them from just creatures into killing. Even when they're not actually fighting, their programming is still telling them to fight. Now this is when Alex is introduced. You have a bunch of dinosaurs that can turn invisible and they're attacking the contestants. Nina and Anna, they're having their battle. They're blinded by their hatred for each other, and Nina is killed by one of the dinosaurs.
Oh no! Is it really that shocking to you? Now you know what it's like to feel the pain of betrayal.
Comes up behind her and clamps down on her. I wonder how that's going to affect Nina, because Nina sees this. That is going to leave a scar on her, and I wonder how that would develop for the character. Now, in the Tekken series, I don't feel like they would ever do that. They would never kill one of these characters, and as such, it's grown stale. 7 games, and Nina and Anna do the same thing in every single one. They yell at each other, they fight, and then they both leave to do it all again in the next game. They have to do something to push these characters to their next stages. If that's killing one of them, then maybe that's what it needs to be. Now, we get to the final chapter of the movie. Lei is all out of options. None of his little tricks or toys, as Heihachi calls them, works. So now his only option to try and maintain the situation and get the results that he wants is to fight himself. And Kazuya even calls him out. He tells him, you're not a fighter. You can't win. But this just shows how desperate Lee is to gain control, to gain power. He's willing to fight someone he knows he can't beat to get what he wants. And you do have to commend him for that, because a lot of people want to do that.
What?
I said they won't work. The moves used by one who doesn't believe in Ken.
You're wrong!
Heihachi shows up after Lei gets beat up, and he calls him weak and he calls him worthless.
The fight's not finished yet. It's not over. I'll take...
Worthless!
And this kind of shows what Lee was fearing. He was fearing being rejected. He was fearing being cast aside. And that's exactly what happened. As a result, he shows up, he kills all the scientists that was helping him, and he nukes the island. He blows it up. Everyone at this point in time has a timer to get off. Jack ends up sacrificing himself, and when I was seeing this, I actually felt something. I actually felt sadness, because this whole show, he was acting selfless. His only reason for going was to save the girl, was to find Boskanovich. He also was helping Lei because their goals was aligned, but at the end of it, he sacrificed himself so they can survive. And what he says at the end, it hits a little bit.
Take care of the girl.
I'll take good care of her. You don't have to worry.
Dad, no, don't leave us! We have to go back! No!
When I come back next time, I will be human for you.
Definitely some strong stuff there coming from a robot. Now Heihachi and Kazuya is fighting. back and forth one-on-one, and you could kind of see that this is what Heihachi wanted. Even though Kazuya is so destroyed, so evil, so corrupt, this is what Heihachi wanted him to be, and he's kind of relishing in it. He's happy. And what I think is interesting, so Jun Kazama also shows up and she's able to talk down Kazuya. The demon disappears because he's no longer being evil, and at this point he lets go. He doesn't kill Heihachi. If you listen to what Heihachi's saying, his reasoning is kind of good. I kind of compare it to Thanos. Thanos was trying to save the universe. Even though it was sick and twisted, he still wanted to save. He still wanted to help. And Heihachi's kind of doing the same thing.
Today, you'll find people mistaking their own greed for truth and eating the planet out from under them and condemning themselves to total annihilation. They're cheerfully justifying their journey towards self-destruction.
He's talking about how humanity is destroying the earth. And this is back in the early 2000s. His reason for doing all the stuff that he did is so that he can tear it all down and build up a new world, a better world. And that's exactly what Thanos was trying to do with the Infinity Stones.
Don't you get it? The only way to truly salvage this disgusting world is to destroy everything on it so a new world can be rebuilt.
And when we faced extinction, I offered a solution.
Genocide.
But random, dispassionate, fair to rich and poor alike. I know what I must do. I will shred this universe down to its last atom. And then, with the stones you've collected for me, create a new one, teeming with life.
And it kind of says a lot there, because in order to get what you want, you have to make sacrifices. And I think that is what the theme is overall. Sacrifices. Kazuya made a lot of sacrifices. Jack sacrifices his life. Nina and Anna, they failed to get over their hatred for each other. And as a result, they were destroyed by it. They didn't make the sacrifices that was necessary. In the conclusion of this story, Lei shows up with a boat stolen from the laboratory, and he saves all of the surviving contestants. And what I love about this, it's Jun Kazama sitting with a bunch of animals, kind of showing how she's like this, she's like Mother Nature almost. Jin shows up and he says, I want you to read me the book again. But once she stands up, she feels the air shift. She feels like something's off. And then it ends with them walking away. And I love how this, even though this show isn't canonically going to be attached to Tekken Bloodline, you can watch this as sort of a prelude and get an understanding for all of the characters, for the story, and everything. I really like that the Tekken motion picture leaves off exactly where Tekken Bloodline is going to pick up. It makes it feel like one long story in that sense. Now, of course, some things is going to be different because, you know, you have retcons. Tekken Bloodline is being made 20 years later, so there will be some things that's different, but I definitely enjoyed watching it. It definitely got me in the mood for more Tekken. But that's going to be it for this review and this sort of reactions video. Thank you everyone for listening, for watching. And I'll say this, if you haven't seen the Tekken motion picture for yourself, you definitely should go watch it. It's 40 minutes and it's definitely worth the watch. It's different from seeing these characters in the game. But that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.